All right, so welcome back to Tony and Sarah Unscripted. We took a little bit of a break just to have some time to get some things done, right? Do some stuff for ourselves. So we're excited to be back here, and our first guest back is Carrie. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I got to meet Carrie probably just a couple of months ago at this stage. I'm thinking
the day of East Haven Pride, whenever that was.
That's right. Okay. Yes. And I met you at ACES, which is where you work. You're a special ed teacher.
Yep.
And I was there doing a little talk. So I'm thrilled that you agreed to come on board with us. And thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you guys for having me. I was very excited as soon as you were like, do you want to come on? I was like, yes, I do. This sounds great.
And I think I met you later on that day
Yes.
at the ice cream type of pride thing at the Trolley Museum, right?
Yeah, the East Haven Pride.
Yeah.
So it all kind of worked out well. And then you were able to come, and then you were going on vacation. And anyway, all worked out well. So welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for being here. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I could go many different ways, but I think the biggest things, I'm in my 40s, trying to live my best life. Been married for almost 10 years. And we're in the process of adopting an 8-year-old daughter. So that's sort of the big things right now in my world. I've been a special ed teacher for, I never remember, let's say 15-ish years. Right now I'm working with severe special ed kids, but in prior versions of myself, I guess, I was working at behavioral schools a lot. And one of my big things that I did in those spaces was work on like DEI work, and really biggest thing was making sure I was like, every school I work at needs a GSA and needs an active GSA, just because it was something that was obviously near and dear to my heart. I identify as queer, genderqueer, and bisexual. That took a long time in my life to get to to figure those out. And thankful for a wonderful wife who helped me get to those places.
So that being said, what pronouns?
I actually use any pronouns.
Any pronouns. Okay. All right. So this is not new, but it's fairly new when people are saying I use any pronouns, because I was facilitating a panel. And the first person, I was like, hey, introduce yourselves. Tell us your name and pronouns. And they said, any. And I panicked. I did. I panicked, okay? And I was like, okay, but what pronoun do you feel comfortable using today? And they were like, he. Can you use the he? I was like, okay, he. When you tell, if somebody asks you, if the person talking to you says, and I know a lot of people don't ask, but somebody says, what pronouns do you use, and you say any, do you welcome them asking you, like, which one do you feel comfortable, or are you sincerely cool with any pronoun, because there's a lot of them now, that they'll throw at you?
I think I'm sincerely cool. I can comfortably say I'm sincerely cool with he, she, or they.
Okay.
I think the other ones I haven't had experience with,
right.
So I don't know how I'd feel with them. I made a sort of conscious choice when I was really coming into thinking about like, oh, you're non-binary, you do not fit. And where is your non-binary? Because that's another one that people like, well, what's non-binary? And I was like, well, you know how when people say if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person,
Mm-hmm.
like it's the same thing. It's so different for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that part's still something I still work on a lot, trying to figure out, as time goes on. But one of those, that first thing is like, well, okay, what are your pronouns going to be if you're not a girl? And I was like, well, none of them fit completely.
Right.
And then I said, it's the least important part of who I am to me. And I know that's not the same for everybody.
Right. This is really an individual answer, because
right.
anybody that uses any pronoun might feel differently. But I just thought in your case.
Yeah. And so, but I made a conscious decision because as a teacher, and I love teachers and I love teaching, but it is a space where this is consistently in front of you and a lot of people don't engage with it. And I think a lot of times it's because they're scared, right? So for me, I made a conscious decision to say to people, I don't care what pronouns you use. I don't like lady. I don't like ma'am.
Yeah.
That I don't like.
And that's not a pronoun.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly.
Thank God.
But that was my thing. I was like, I don't like lady.
Everybody.
I don't like ma'am. I don't like when you're like, hey, girls. Like, those are the things, like, you're not recognizing who I am. Right? A pronoun is, you're just saying whatever. People mess up pronouns to me, right? And the other thing I said to them, I said, any person, you have no excuse anymore to say, I'm not comfortable with it, or I don't know how to do it, or it's just something I have to get used to because I am your practice.
Yeah.
Right. If you are someone who's like, I can't do they, them, it's not grammatically correct. Well, here I am, because I don't care if you screw it up 75 times. Right. And you can get comfortable with it. And it's actually led to some really great conversations and some moments that are, for me, they're very validating. Like it's weird to say because I don't mean it as a litmus test, but it becomes one, right? Most people still, she, her, she, hi Carrie, she, and I'm like, okay, fine. And it's fine. But then when you get the person just on a random day who's like, well, he says, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, look. And it's just, and it's not the pronoun. It's you thought about it, right? You spent some time to see that, like, I am not what you've decided I am. Right.
So when you say, like, generally you don't care what pronoun people used, it just seemed to, in that example, that you kind of gravitate more to the he. Like you said, well, she. You don't like when somebody uses the same pronoun on you?
No, it was just, the pronoun's not what hits me.
Okay.
It's you have taken the time to recognize I am not what you, I don't know how graphically, I don't think this is graphic, but like, yeah. You looked at me, you saw boobs, and you did not automatically think I was a woman.
Okay.
Which I think is a big. I look at the way I dress, I look at my haircut, and I used to do, at school it was button downs and bow ties, and I'm like, what are you seeing that's saying you're saying female, right? Yeah. And so it was that moment of like, you're taking this extra step to see me as a human, right? And I have, one of my assistant principals uses they, them for me all the time. And again, it jolts me in a minute because I'm so used to hearing she, her. Yeah. But so I'm like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, right. But again, I said to them the first time they asked me, they're like, well, what do you want me to use? And I said, whatever you want. And I explained to them the whole thing about, like, do whatever feels comfortable, but also challenge yourself, right?
Like, I wouldn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and especially me being so sensitive in my pronouns. Yeah. As a trans guy, like.
And
it used to trigger me when somebody says, hey, ladies, and they weren't even talking to me, but I was like, hey, lady.
Yeah.
They could be talking to the table next to me, and I'm like, oh, my God, why did they say that?
And and I think those are the bigger ones for me. It's when you lump me in to this is what I see and this is what I want to see, instead of recognizing that you are not seeing, what you've been told to see is not the reality of the world anymore. And it never really was, right?
Right.
But I exist. I am here. I'm part of the community. See me for who I am. And, there was someone, I can't remember who it was, but at my last school in Boston where I taught, that would just mix it up all the time. And I was like, yay! Because it was just like they were forcing other people to see it, right? Yeah. And I think that's sort of the disruptor in me too, of why I do that, right? Is like, I want you to come to me and be like, well, what is that even like? Why can't you just pick one? And to have, I've had multiple conversations that are similar to this, where I get to say to them, and I'll very often say, let me be clear. I'm telling you I don't care. That doesn't mean nobody cares, right?
Well, right. And, it's an individual.
Yeah. And kind of giving them that space because, I had another woman who came, she kept doing ladies. And I finally said to her, oh, no, she would say girls or so hey, girl or whatever. And I don't know. Have you guys ever seen the show The Good Place? Mm-hmm. So I'm not a girl. Yeah. I do that all the time. You're like, hey, girl. I'm like, not a girl. Moving on. Like, and I just roll right by it. And she came and she's like, can we talk? And I was like, of course. And I went in and I initially got frustrated with her because it was very much like, well, I don't see what the problem is and I don't understand. And instead it led to this really great conversation about this same piece of like, well, I'm really old and, I'm set in my ways and this is how I do things. And that's what I initially heard. And then it was, I'm older. I'm not practiced at this. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I don't know what to do. And that was this really wonderful moment. And it's funny because she's retired now and she comes back and she subs for my class every summer because I don't work in the summers. But having those moments of really big connection of like, this is what it means for somebody who's not fitting your norm.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just one person, but this is what it's like the emotional part of it, right? And I remember saying something to her along the lines of like, look, if I was transgender, this would be like, I'm under the umbrella. We did like, I'm under the umbrella, but blah, 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 you know? And I was like, if I was just transgender, I was, you know, female to male or whatever, this would be a different conversation. But the underlying thing is still the same.
If you were binary, if you were a binary.
A binary, yeah. I was like, but the underlying thing is still the same. I'm asking you to see who I am telling you I am instead of who you have decided because of what society has told you I am.
Yeah. And how are you? Oh, so go ahead.
Well, interesting enough that you said that none of them feel right for you.
Yeah.
So if you were to make up, so there are ones, right? The Z and Zer, I think maybe.
Those are like old school. There's people go by it. People go by per and pers now.
So you don't. So that's part of the problem for you, is that there's not one that truly you feel fits you.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, I'm trying to. I have this moment where I'm like, don't be politically incorrect, but that it is what it is.
It's unscripted.
And exactly. So, and it's not really. It's just I'm very cautious about. You know, Two-Spirit is a very specific thing to Native American culture or indigenous culture. And I have a very hard time because I don't want to step on it at all. But the word Two-Spirit to me is like, that's it. I'm not one or the other. I'm both mixed in between and like finger painted all into one big thing. And so, you know, my daughter often, you know, because she didn't grow up with us. She came to us when she was about 7. And so she's always, well, are you a boy or a girl? And I'm like, I'm not either one, sweetheart. And well, which one? And I was like, were you more a girl, more? I said, neither. I said, honestly, it's not even either. I'm both.
Right.
And she's like, well, what do you mean? And so it's this constant, and it's funny because I remember, when we were talking about having kids, and we were like, be ready to be challenged on every single thing that's ever been an issue for you, or I forget how they phrase it, but that kind of piece. And I was like, yeah, I know, figuring like, oh, the triggers from your kid, and was like, oh no, here's the trigger of your gender every day in front of you. But it does force you to get there. And so anyways, for me, it's that piece of like, I don't have a pronoun that encompasses it all. Okay. Right. And it's probably one of the things that I think about even like subconsciously the most often. Like something will come up and be like, well, what is it? Like, what is your gender? And in the end, I come to like, it doesn't really matter, but it is still that piece of like, where do you fit on this spectrum alignment? And even, I remember when I first said the words like, okay, I am this is the word. And this word existed, I think it was 96 or something that the word was first coined or something. And I was like, wow, if it had been around in 96. But I'm like, this is who I have been since I was very little. But when I was very little, I didn't have that word. Yeah. So I just was like, oh, you want to be a boy because you don't want to be a girl, right? Girl does
there's
not
only two
fit.
Choices back
exactly. And those are your only options. So it must be that you want to be a boy. And, I remember when I was little, I got called the F word. I got called, why do you want to be a boy? What's wrong with you? Like all of those things. And you just have those moments of like, well, I don't know. Yeah. But when I got to, okay, I'm non-binary, I had a struggle with, okay, my belief is nobody is one or the other. Everybody is in between. Sort of like the same thing I feel about sexuality, right? Was not the Kinsey scale, but the spectrum, right? Nobody is all the way, or very few people are one or the other. But then it was this whole thing of like, well, you can't do that. Yeah. Like I can't turn to somebody and be like, well, there's no such thing as being a boy or a girl, because then I'm discounting cis people, but I can cope with that because I can challenge them whenever I need to, but I'm not going to go challenge a trans person who has spent their life in the same kind of journey and say, well, you got there, but that's not right. So it's this constant thought process of like, I don't really understand it. I just know it doesn't fit to be one or the other for me.
And I think that's where that's how people can find acceptance, is when they don't try to feel what the other person feels.
Yeah.
Like I tell this all the time, like don't try to understand what it's like being trans because you're not.
Right.
All right. So you're setting yourself up for failure. Like I don't know what it's like to be, born in a body that matches my gender identity. You're cool and everything, but trans and non-binary people are cooler. But it's fact. It's fact.
Yeah.
But hello. What really is cool to me, and I have to give you props for this, is that you're living your authentic life, and it's very brave of you to do that. You're not saying they, them because you feel like you're, a combination of two genders. You're saying any pronoun. And do you bring that everywhere you go? Do you bring that into the workplace? Do your students ask, pronouns? Like, do you educate them, or how old are your students? I guess I just want to know a little bit more about
the
students.
So right now I'm with 18 to 22-year-olds who are in more severe, so heavier autism, Down syndrome, stuff like that. So it doesn't come up as much. For good or for bad, it also coincided with things getting a lot worse. We talked the night that we met, or the day we met, we talked about, that oppressive feeling of like, maybe you shouldn't be speaking out. Maybe you have to come back and hide a little bit more. So I've lucked out, I guess you'd call it. I don't really know if that's fair. But in the past, I did make more conscious effort to. I was I forget who told me once. Like, well, you're a disruptor. I was like, oh, I love that term. I went with
having that title.
Yeah, I went with troublemaker for a long time, but disruptor's nice.
It's more mature.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now that I'm older, but I think my first. So I didn't come out as. I came out as a lesbian first. That didn't happen until. It first happened. No, I take that back. I came out as bisexual when I was like 28. I moved out to Washington State to find myself and with all of this stuff. And as soon as I came out as bisexual, I started dating a guy. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then it was like broke up, and I was like, oh no, you're totally gay. But it was another like 3 or 4 years before I finally came out. And then I met my wife when I was like 36. And I think I was probably 37 or 38 when I said to her, I think I'm non-binary. And I promise this goes somewhere. So the way that happened was, so I got sick. I had cancer, and I went through a stem cell transplant, and they were like, you're going to lose your hair. So I shaved my head off, and it was really funny. The night we did it, first I did a mohawk, and I was like, oh, I love this. And then I did it was just my bangs, where he was like, I actually even like that. And then we shaved it completely, and I loved it, whatever. But then I just never went back to longer hair. And I was just like, oh, and my wife is she's very femme. She loves femme women, like she's very attracted to that. So I kept saying to her, I was like, you sure? She's like, no, I like your short hair. It's good, whatever. So, and then towards the end of that year, my GSA that I was a part of, we were having prom. And I was like, who's going to prom? None of them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, why aren't you going to go to prom? And they were like, well, because like, I don't want to deal with people giving me a hard time if I want to dance with a girl or I want to dance with a boy, And a couple of them were like, there's no way of the girls, I will say girls at the time, most of them are not now, or multiple anyways. I'm not a girl, or I'm not going to wear a dress. I don't want to wear a dress. You can't make it. I was like, you don't have to wear a dress to go to prom. Like, you can wear whatever the heck you want. It's your prom. And I was like, I don't know if I said it to them, like, we're not at a public school where anyone's going to give you a hard time. Like, we're at an alternative school. We all get that we're different here, Yeah. And so I went out with my wife. I said, I want to do this for them. And I think I was doing it for myself as much as them, right? Yeah. So I went out, I got these bright orange pants, the suspenders, and a men's button-down shirt with a turquoise bow tie. I had like the whole outfit. I had a hat. It was so wonderful.
Was that one of the first times that you allowed yourself
the first time? I mean, I always dressed jeans and a t-shirt. I was always kind of and sneakers. That's just sort of been my uniform since, I don't know, 4th grade maybe. But it was first time, really dressed up, and I got saddle shoes that I loved, and it was and I was so comfortable. And I was like, everyone was like, you look so great, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know how much later it was that I said to my wife, I think I'm non-binary. And she was just so supportive, So it was like, I was going somewhere and then I lost it. But basically, I've been very much in every school I go to, like very much a disruptor in that way. Like once I saw that those kids were in a space of like, I'm not comfortable, you know, that's when I started saying it, being louder about it, you know.
Because once they see, I mean, you're a perfect example of just being free and being authentic. They need to see that. Kids need to see that in every school, you know, that they can see their future. It's so important for them to know that they can live a life where they can just be. And it takes so much pressure off of them. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I know that times have changed from way back when, but being an educator and not being a cookie cutter educator, you know, straight, is still not really welcomed.
Right. And I think I lucked out because I taught at alternative schools.
Yeah.
I taught at outplacement schools where it was a little easier for me to be like, hey, you know, and step up to people. But I did a lot of times it was like, let me take the heat for this issue. Let me be the one who's going to go out and be like, no. I told you I don't like being called lady. Don't do that. So that let them get mad at me about it so that when the kid comes up to them and says, hey, I'm changing my pronouns, they've already gotten mad at someone and realized it's not going anywhere. I did, you know, I taught 1 year of public school I taught like very first year, but I don't really count that one. But I've taught 1 year, I taught public school in Connecticut. And that was a very big wake up for me. And again, it was later. It was only a few years ago. So,
what grade?
Middle school. So seventh grade.
So when you say wake up,
but the wake up was not the kids.
I was just gonna say
the wake up was the adults.
Yeah.
The wake up was, hey, I want to start a GSA. Where everywhere else it was like, okay. This was, we have to figure out what the form's going to look like, and we have to figure out, and is it going to be safe? And again, we're getting later on. It was after the first presidency of awful, you know, and so we had kind of gone down that path, and it was like, okay, well, and jump through this hoop, jump through that hoop, and once we finally got it going, to me, the idea of using someone's pronoun correctly is just a given. Right. And I'd been at these schools where it became a given very quickly because I would be like, no, this is what we're doing. And also in spaces of like, we'd have this thing of like, there was a speaker, I don't remember the name, but they used the phrase, please don't say gay to mean stupid. I know, you know, myself and a lot of people who are very smart. And I forget the exact phrase because I haven't used it in so long. But I would use that phrase all the time when I heard a kid use that term. But like in this public school, I had a whole conversation with one of the deans, and we were talking about the N word and the F word. And I was like, he said, I would never tell a black student they can't use the N word. And I said, well, I would, but I would only tell them they can't use it here because, and it would require a conversation of you have to know who's around you and know that it's not about what the white people are feeling, but you might be insulting other black people.
Right.
And you also don't know what you're teaching other people. And anyways, but then he was like, well, I wouldn't. I was like, okay, well, so would you stop a black kid from using the N word? He was like, no. I was like, okay, well, would you stop a gay kid from using the F word? And he was like, of course I would. I was like, wait. I'm like, these are not, let me be clear, these are not the same thing. I said, but these are similar things. And I'm trying to remember, I think he said something like, look, as an educator, trust me that there is a big difference. And I said, well, as a gay person, no, there's not. But that moment to me of like, we're going to make these separations and not, there just hadn't been this thought process about it. And then when we finally did start the GSA, I had so many kids. Because my GSAs were always, what do you want to do? We can sit here and play games and just hang out. You can ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer them. We can, do fundraising. We can do, knowledge campaigns. And I did all of them at some point. But at this school, it was just like, well, can you get the teachers to do something about the kids saying gay and calling me gay? And I was like, wait, who's calling you gay? And because at the school, was hate. It was defined. This is hate language. You should be suspended. And kids weren't getting suspended. They were just getting pulled out in the hall and talked to. And then it would happen again. Yeah. And it was just mind-boggling to me, the shift. And it was one of the reasons I was like, I got to step back, because it was hard for me to be in this space of like, I know this is happening to kids who are like me. Mm-hmm. I remember what it was like for me to be called this. And I couldn't even say, hey, don't be saying that to somebody, because the teacher wouldn't even listen to me, right?
Right.
But it was just
and
just
this was
really
just a few
hard.
years ago.
Yeah.
So, I'm telling you, I just trained a school last year, and I brought that up, and they were like, yeah, we still hear that's so gay more than ever. Does, I thought maybe it went away a little bit, but it's still very there. And they said, sometimes we don't hear it. A lot of times it's said when we can't hear it. I don't know if that was the truth, but I
think there is a space of, we don't hear it. Well, of course you don't hear it, because it's not offensive to you. And I don't mean that in a way of like, they're like, I don't care. It's just like, I am going to hear it everywhere I go.
Right. Yeah, right.
I hear it happen, and I'm just like, what happened?
It's going to be amplified for sure.
Yeah. But having to try and talk to people, and like, you got to start trying to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just that space of, it's not okay. And I would be in a room, like, I would go in, because I was like a resource teacher. So I'd go into the classroom sometimes, and I'd be in there, and a kid would say it. I'm right next to him. Yeah. And I'd be like, that's so gay. And I'd be like, what'd you just say? And they'd look at me like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And I was like, well, number one, it's mixed, but that's a whole other topic. But even that was nobody at that school ever thought to ask. So I got to school that first day. And I had been in the district a year before as an equity coach, but that was tough. But I got there, and my door said Miss Dennehy, and I was like, so I went and I fixed it, put the X on it or whatever. And then one of the deans came up, and to her credit, as soon as she saw it, she was like, give me. And she went and she just completely fixed it.
Oh, yeah. Good.
And she made sure. So there are people, like, there are definitely people there who have gotten the message of the trainings that have happened over the last like 10 years or whatever. And they lean into it, but I think there are a lot of people who still just kind of, it goes right over,
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the deal with the people that are leading the teams, like, this person that came and fixed it, let me fix it. They have to set the tone, and they can't, if somebody does something that's not right, they need to call them out on it. And if they continue to do it, they need to out them.
Yep.
That's it. You can't work here anymore. You know what I mean? So I do hold a lot of responsibility to the principals and the vice principals, and the people that are really running the schools, to hold people accountable.
Yep.
Because a lot of times it's not. Everybody's like, oh, it's coming from the students. No, sometimes it's coming from the educators or the staff.
Well, they said, I think it was a study, but kids said it, and this was years ago. I heard it is. Kids know who to bully because they watch the teachers to figure out who to bully, who to bully, and so the kids know. And I was just read a thing. It was very quickly. I want to learn more about it. And, people that are kind of starting to challenge the complex concept, of implicit bias, because implicit implies that you'd have no control over it,
right?
And that there is, with paying, doing a little knowledge and a little research and a little effort, this doesn't have to be implicit. But that space of like, I kind of lost my train of thought, but just that piece of like, wait a minute, maybe we need to pay more attention. Yeah. And maybe we need to step into it a little deeper,
So your first day of school, you're teaching, I'm assuming, this year? And when is that?
I go back on the 26th. Students come back on the 31st. My daughter starts on the 31st, so I'm just sort of playing that that's the date that everyone's going. Yeah. So
what do you? We got to wrap this up. But one question is,
I know I could talk for 7 hours.
What are you looking forward to for this year? What are you hoping for?
I'm always looking forward to my kids. They're just fun. And seeing just the growth they make. It's sometimes hard because they make little smaller steps, but I really do enjoy when we can do that. And I'm looking forward to kind of diving back in. It was a stressful year, I think, between the way the world is and kind of home stuff and everything that kind of went on. I didn't have my best year, but I'm just really excited to kind of go in and really work on doing my best with my staff and with the other staff in the building. And we have a DEI committee that we're going into our third year together. So,
that's wonderful.
And we all get together when it's not going great, and we're like, what are we going to do to change things? And so it's kind of nice that way.
Your students are so lucky to have you. And
I was just
Thank
going to
you.
say that.
Thank you.
Just from the half hour that we've got to spend some time with you, I can tell
you're
you're
awesome.
making some differences out there in the world. So thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you guys so much
for being with us.
Hey,
Yes.
anytime. This was really fun.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.